This is Christopher Oury with Nataris. Today I will be reviewing the OSD on our camera systems. This particular OSD is a functioning one, and we have not had any issues with it. As you can see, we have our OSD overlay down here. It is on. We have clean video feed, and we have our timer, our voltage level, and our battery. When I turn the OSD off, as you can see, the OSD is now off. We have our video. It has become a little grainy from when it was originally on, but we still have a functioning system. When I turn it back on, we lose video briefly, and after a second, it comes back in. Our other systems are having issues with the bottom OSD flickering. The point of this video is to go over key points of this setup, so that way it can be used to compare other systems to this one. To start simply, I will be tracing our power in from battery only, and I will trace this all the way throughout the system up to our OSD's 12 volt voltage reading and our OSD's power in. Alright, this system is on. I will now turn it off. I'm going to start by following my positive line. My positive line comes over here to my double pole double throw. When this switch is on, it comes down to this green cable here. Following my green cable, we come to the positive line in here. This positive line then comes on, and it comes up this way. Here it is. And it comes up to our breakers in, which then comes to our breaker out and comes down to our voltage regulator. Now, our OSD's power comes off from here and it comes back down, and it looks like it comes out here, which then comes over to our OSD and plugs into our OSD's button C. When on, C connects to our NO and to our positive. This will turn on the LED. Then, if we follow this positive, we see that it comes here, and it looks, there's some heat shrink there. So this positive is spliced in to our power in, which then comes to our brown cable, which comes to our 5 volt power in. This is our 5 volt voltage regulator. So the real question is, where does our positive power come from? If we trace this all the way back, let me go ahead and hook that. Okay, so our positive power in, so our 12 volt in, is coming from our C connection here, which comes from our breakers load here. Following my ground now, we come to our switch over here, which then comes down to our blue cable. Following our blue cable, we come to this side of our switch. When powered on, this comes up here. Here we are. And up to our negative in on the voltage regulator. This then comes down and feeds into this spool of wire here. And then comes out on this end, down here, where it gets spliced here. We have 4 splices. This splice here comes back to our OSD switch, which tells me that this is the negative power in at the OSD switch. These other 2 splices come up and connect to our 5-volt voltage regulator ground and our power input for our OSD. I'll now trace video line from my OSD to my board and my double pole double throw switch. I will start with my ground video line as those 2 are spliced together. So here's my ground. It comes down this way and comes here. Where they both get soldered down in this bundle. One cable appears to come out to my camera input here. My other cable, though, comes out into my board. I will now follow video out, which was this side, I believe. So our yellow comes down through all of this, and it comes to this bundle here. Now, it's this splice right here. I apologize, I grabbed video in. So it's this top splice right up here where it gets spliced, and one end of this comes to my board. My other end comes out to my NC on the double pole double throw switch. Lastly, I will look at this line here, which is my input. It comes here from the OSD to this bottom solder joint here, which then splits back here. One comes from the camera input. One comes from the camera input at the bottom. The other one comes down here to C. A quick overview of my OSD. I'm just taking down some notes for video notes for future reference. This OSD has heat shrink on it and has been soldered directly to each and every single one of my cables, including my powers in and my power there. All of these connections have been hot glued down at one point. My 5-volt voltage regulator is 5 volts at 500 milliamps. The TX board settings for my switch are up and down. My positive feed is mostly separated from my video feed in this particular setup. It does, however, conjoin down here in this area. I will now, sorry about that. Looking at this when it gets set down, we can see that my video lines come a little further forward, and these power lines look like they might actually slide behind the battery, with the exception of one power cable, which appears to be trying to peek out. Yeah, there's definitely one power cable on top. This camera is an HC 180. Nothing else really to note about it. My voltage level is currently at 13.1. My voltage reading is 13.7. My timer is accurate. My signal strength is fluctuating, but tends to stay closer to a steady 4 bars. The VRB I'm using has the same channel settings. My video and power are entangled. There's no OSD switch, so there's no reason for me to trace any of the cables here, but you can definitely see it's all kind of mixed together. I'm going to take a look at one of our other systems, which the OSD has been removed, but I know this one was giving us some trouble. So looking this over real quick. We are using these connectors here in place for our OSD, and it's not soldered directly on. Our power came from here. Our board settings are up and down. Let me see. Here we go. this is an OSD which is confirmed defective. I don't know why that was done, but let's go over this one real quick. I will trace from my positive and my negative at the same time. So they both come over here and are connected to my top. They then come down here and feed through over to here. When powered on, my positive comes up this way. My ground now comes back over this way. It's really fucking annoying. My positive comes over this way. Why would they even do that? Let's see. My ground comes down, up and around. One ground goes to the OSD, which appears to be soldered directly in. The other comes to my voltage regulator, where it's spliced there, and to my on-off button here. My video, this is my video in, comes down. I'm noting that this video in appears to be spliced here, but it does not have this particular solder splice. I cannot confirm as this cover is on it. Now this comes down over here, connects to my C and my video in. But where aren't you connected to? No, video out is on the other side. Now my video out comes down. Once again, I cannot confirm how this is spliced in here. It then comes to my NC, which also connects to my board. Then my positive is here, and my negative is here. Positive comes directly from my 12-volt voltage regulator. Same with my negative. No. Wait. So here's my negative in. It comes down, around, and yes, it does come from my 12-volt voltage regulator. Now power this system on. There we go. I'll begin the pairing cycle. I have no signal at all from this board. My OSD is currently off. I will now power it on. My OSD has turned on. This is an HC180. And I still have no signal from the board. I'll now power this system off. A few notes for jotting down. First of all, my pair lights, power in and negative, are both disconnected. The voltage regulator was moved over here. I don't know why. It looks like my board power and my camera power both come after the voltage regulator. Everything else is coming before the voltage regulator, including my 5-volt voltage regulator. This particular system is using these connections instead of directly having it soldered in. Then all of these splices down here do not use this splice here. I don't know if this heat shrink splice has anything to do with why these are not working, but that is something to note down. Notable that this is not using it either, and this is my ground power. My positive and my negative are in good condition. My board switches are down and up. My antenna does this weird loop around over here. That's interesting. Now, if I'm to close this system, all of my power and my video cables seem to be coagulating up over here. Alright, that completes this video for my faulty OSDs. My ongoing theory to test these systems out, I'd like to connect a new camera to this board and see if the camera's not just faulty on it. It's likely that there is some other issue in the soldering for this particular unit which has made it defective. Big things to note is the difference between soldering those in and not. So I'm curious if that's the issue. One other thing I need to do prior to anything else is to pull the programming off of the functioning HC180 camera. This completes this video.